ever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon from sin and a peace that endureth, thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Well, that was beautiful. Thank you very much. All right, our gospel lesson for today is Hebrews 11, verses 1 through 6. It's on page 1472. Faith makes us sure of what we hope for and gives us proof of what we cannot see. It was their faith that made our ancestors pleasing to God. Because of our faith, we know that the world was made at God's command. We also know that what can be seen was made out of what cannot be seen. Because Abel had faith, he offered God a better sacrifice than Cain did. God was pleased with him, and even though Abel is now dead, his faith still speaks for him. Enoch had faith and did not die. He pleased God, and God took him up to heaven. That's why his body was never found. But without faith, no one can please God. We must believe that God is real and that he rewards everyone who searches for him. Here we go. When Laura Kohler first contacted me asking me to give a sermon, I was dumbfounded. What would I have to say to my church family? What would they want to hear from me? As I struggled with my message and what I wanted to say to you, something Laura said to me kept echoing in my head. I think people just want to hear your story. My story. What do I have to tell? I was sitting there struggling to come up with some divine message, some answer to a deep burning question that you all have. And I was lost. And then I realized we each have to find our own divine message. Some answers to deep burning questions. If I were to stand here and by some miracle be able to offer you an unrefuted answer to some of life's burning questions, chances are your human mind wouldn't even be able to comprehend it. And unfortunately, I don't have those answers. However, I believe these divine answers are not that clear-cut. They can't be delivered in a sermon or casually handed down from parent to child. That divine message that we all yearn to hear is a silent whisper, and a whisper that comes in a different way to each of us. So I thought to myself, just maybe in telling my seemingly inconspicuous story, hopefully just one person could hear that whisper of divine encouragement that they have so desperately been seeking in their lives. If nothing else, it's going to get Laura off my back for a little bit. So my story, where do I begin? I grew up in a farm family in the 80s. Many of you know what that means. We didn't have a lot, and the struggle was real. But I had a happy home and a happy family. I never doubted that my parents loved me and that they would provide for me. Life was not easy, but life was good. However, the part of the story that I want to share with you today started a little later in my life. At the sunset of my senior year, I met a handsome boy who took my world by storm. From the first moment I saw him working behind a gas station counter, my entire life changed. Now, nearly 20 years later, my relationship with that handsome boy has become something amazing to me that I am at a loss to even find the words to describe. I am blessed beyond belief to truly be married to my best friend, and each morning when I wake up, the love I feel towards this man takes my breath away. This seemingly normal life that we have created together is my own little piece of heaven. But just as diamonds are forged through extreme pressure and the strongest metals are made in scalding heat, this little piece of heaven was formed in the presence of some of the greatest challenges I care to imagine. That, my friends, is the story I chose to share with you today. That is my story of having faith. Oswald Chambers once wrote, "Faith never knows where it is being led, but it knows and loves the one who is leading." As most of you have experienced, there comes a point in many of our lives when we are tested so deeply that we're at a complete loss of direction, hope, and even comprehension of what tomorrow may bring. It is often at that point we're forced to throw up our hands and say, "That's it, I give up. Jesus, take the wheel. Give me direction, God, because I'm foundering and I don't see any way out." Or even, my God, why have you forsaken me?" It is also often at this point that we have a real opportunity in front of us. These moments can shape who we are at the very core of our being. They can change every moment that is to come in our lives, and I will admit I have been at this point a few more times in my life than I care to admit. But one of the most monumental started on April 1st of 2008. So, that brings me back to this handsome boy that I met at a gas station. All of our college fun and a few highs and lows points in our relationship added up to deciding to make it official. We were married in a small wedding in my mom's garden. It was a picture-perfect day in every way. When Sean proposed to me, however, it was under one stipulation. I had been unsure if I wanted to have kids. Sean, however, was not. He wanted to be a father and was never so sure of anything in his life. Well, when you have something as wonderful as I had with this man, and he has something that means so much to him, it quickly changes your mind. In 2007, on my 27th birthday, we found out we were going to have our first child. Dominic Joseph was born on October 28th. Life was perfect. As with any first-time parents, we faced our challenges in lack of sleep and trying to figure out just what we were doing with this tiny new human who had suddenly overtaken our lives. But life was perfect. Sean proved to be an amazing father right from the start. I clearly remember the quiet evenings with our little family, our bedtime rituals and morning snuggles. Like any new parent, we dreamt of what the future held. We had joking conversations about where Dominic would go to school. I was a Redwood graduate and Sean a bold warrior. We had so many dreams for our beautiful baby boy. However, it was not to be. On April 1st, I received the phone call that's every parent's worst nightmare. Our perfect world came crashing down. The days following our son's death and funeral are a bit like a dream to me. My memories seem to drift in and out of consciousness. Some things are so clear. Every detail of the memory is crisp and bright, just as if it were yesterday. Others are cloudy and foggy, and parts of them are even missing completely. But the one thing that never wavered was my relationship with that handsome boy that I met in a gas station all those years ago. We were the perfect complement to each other. When I gave up, dropped to my knees, and lost all composure, he was there with a strong arm wrapped around me, the ultimate support. Never judging or trying to tell me the best way to grieve, neither of us knew what we were doing, but we knew we were doing it together. When he was at his lowest, I was feeling strangely strong, and when I had my darkest days, he seemed to be more composed. Instead of judging each other for this, we used it to our advantage. We held each other up and gave the understanding shoulder that only we could provide to each other. In many ways, this experience made us stronger together than we ever could have imagined and drove our relationship so deep that our souls became entwined in a deep understanding and compassion that could never be lessened. Like a delicate glass vase that's been broken and glued back together. Sometimes the very cracks that tried to tear us apart are what give us true beauty and strength in the end. We found peace in tears. We consoled each other by sharing our stories and embracing the times we had. We had so many blessings. Many times when a loved one dies, we hear all the regret that people face after the death. We had no regrets. We lived every moment with that amazing little boy to the fullest, and that beautiful little boy never wondered for a single moment if he was loved. He knew his mommy and daddy loved him, fully and completely. We learned to look at all the blessings. When you open your eyes to them, they can be found in places you least expect to see them. But you have to be willing to look. And trust me, that's not always easy. One of the things I often get asked about is the daycare provider that was supposed to be watching Dominic on the day he died. I get asked if I'm angry with her. I'm not angry at her. In the months following Dominic's death, I was approached many times about filing wrongful death suits against her. I'm not angry at her. Were there times I was? Yes, I'm only human. Anger is a normal part of the grief process. I was also mad at many other people, places, and inanimate objects that had nothing to do with my son's death. However, now all I feel towards her is sympathy, compassion, and gratefulness. Gratefulness. Does that one take you by surprise? What a blessing she gave me. She took a huge burden from me. Thanks to her, I don't have the memory of finding my son lifeless and unresponsive. She bears that memory for me. She relives the panic call to 911, the unsuccessful attempts to revive him. Those are her memories to bear. And I am grateful to her. Like I said, sometimes looking for those blessings in life is not comfortable. The shallow, very human part of me wanted to be angry at her. That part of me wanted to put blame on her. I could file a claim and sue her, but where would that leave me? If I did that, I missed the blessing. and that blessing was more valuable to me than any money or solace found in anger. As humans, we want to make sense of everything. There has to be someone to blame, a reason for everything. It drives us crazy when we cannot see that reason. However, I firmly believe the reason is there. It's just out of our